Has anyone else wanted to, like, eat one of these things? I won't lie. Things have been doing pretty good around here. And I'm thankful for you, and I'm thankful for you, and I'm definitely thankful for you. Do I get it? Yes, of course, I'm fantastic. But I wanted to really show you just how thankful I am by taking a look at the lore of the mythical Pokemon literally made to represent this kind of feeling. Shaymin. This bundle of moss graced our screens for the first time in Giratina and the Sky Warrior, a movie I watched endlessly as a kid and continue to watch as an adult with actual media literacy like this. As for the games, we should talk about Oak's Letter. If you don't know, the first time Shaymin was featured in the main games was in Pokemon Platinum through Oak's Letter. This was a key item you could grab off the internet that opens up a story where you're invited to meet Professor Oak in Sinnoh. He prompts you to write on a stone who you're most thankful for. You know, cute old man stuff. This opened up the sea break path that takes you to Shaymin's home in Flower Paradise, which isn't really lore. I think Shaymin is more than entitled to something more. In all of their appearances, they're not really given too much more than the sheer existence of these damn Gracidea flowers. So let's count our blessings because there's more of those than there are words in Shaymin's whole deal. But before taking a crack at my own lore for Shaymin, let's get to know them as they are now. To TLDR Shaymin's lore, they're a rare species that thrives off of people's thankfulness. It's said that when a cruel winter ends because of how grateful people are for the changing seasons, Shaymin will revitalize any damaged land, purify any toxic air with blooming flowers abound. They also transform into a contentious sky form if they're near a flower called the Gracidea, which happens to resemble the leaves on landform's ears. These flowers imbue the gift of flight upon Shaymin, and people have tied sightings of them in the sky with the idea of them spreading gratitude itself. So yeah, pretty basic. But that's fine, basic's cute, they're cute, it works. But I do think there's more than enough room to flesh them out with my own take on their lore, so it's probably time to figure out what this thing actually is. Shaymin is a very simple design. That's Hedgehog. That might be a bit reductive though. After a bit of digging, it might be possible that Shaymin looks like that for a few reasons. There's bouquets of course, most often given as gifts, but there's also kashiwa mochi. Mochi that's been wrapped in a leaf given to kids on Children's Day. But that's just landform. Skyform is probably one of the most heavily debated Pokemon origins I've ever seen. Some people think it's a reindeer, which, I'll be honest, I've never really bought. But there are a lot of design similarities with the Kushid. These are canine creatures covered in grass or moss that are also harbingers of death, who would bark 3 times. If you heard the first, you had to find safety before the third struck a fear so deep within you that it steals your final breath. Needless to say, I think this is not that. I wouldn't be surprised if Shaymin's Skyform is more of a Chihuahua sheet. Purely aesthetic, without any of that death stuff, since after all, landform is where the main concept comes in. From a more conceptual perspective, Shaymin's place in Sinnoh could be inspired by the Japanese goddess Konohana Sakuya Hime, also known as Zengen-sama. She is the goddess that controls the eruptions of Mount Fuji, however she is also the goddess of flowers who is said to bring safe births, true love, and most important to Shaymin, agriculture. While Konohana Sakuya is most known for a story about the birth of her children, I did find a story from Richard Gordon Smith's Ancient Tales and Folklore of Japan, where he shared stories told to him from his journeys in Japan. Do forgive me, I couldn't find a direct Japanese source to corroborate this story's validity though, so I guess I'll believe you this time. Richard. The story's about a boy named Yosoji who wanted to save his mother from smallpox, so he went to a fortune teller who told him to get water from the base of Mount Fuji. Not quite knowing where to go, a young girl in white came up to him and guided him to the fresh water. Days later, Yosoji came back for more for the rest of the village, where he met the girl again. She told him that if he wanted to treat the entire village, it would take him 5 trips. Thanks to her guidance, Yosoji was able to succeed in saving his village, who thanked him endlessly. But this didn't sit quite right with Yosoji, as it was thanks to her guidance that he was able to save the village. When he went to go and see the girl in white again, she was gone, and the water had dried up. After praying to see her again, she appeared, telling Yosoji that her identity wasn't important and she needed no thanks. Saying goodbye, she swung a camellia branch above her head, pulling forth a cloud from Mount Fuji that took her away. Yosoji then realized the entire time he was talking to the goddess Konohana Sakuya herself. Something to note here actually, is that Shaymin is one of the few Pokemon to have the source of their name solidly confirmed. At the Pokémon National Championship 2016 held in Taiwan, Junichi Masuda was there speaking about Shaymin and confirmed that the source of their name comes from 谢谢, meaning thanks. So with this Chinese connection, Shaymin could be inspired by the Huaxian. They are the Taoist flower goddesses who embody the longing of the people and fulfilling prayers for a good life. Each member of the Huaxian represents a different flower, some of which may have directly inspired the design of the Gracidea flower. After looking at these petals for way too long, I think the plum or peach blossom mixed with the colouring of a lotus might fit best, veering into a pomegranate blossom as we go into Skyform. So with all that being said, we have a little air filter of a hedgehog who could act as a guide, looks after locals, and turns into a death dog. I'll be honest, I only expected one of these things, and it's your guess which one. I think for my own take on the lore, it'll suit Shaymin best if I go this spiritual direction. The fact that there are Huaxian representing each month is sparking some synapses for me too, so I'll try and implement that. I do really like this story about Yosoji, it just fits perfectly for Shaymin in my opinion. So I'll try and bring that in too. Here's hoping I do a good job. You'll have to let me know. Because it's tape time. I wonder if people like this. Do people like this? Should I just go straight into... As the mountains thaw their frosted tips, where does the miracle of green come from? With soil so drenched in the blanket of spring's dew, the blossom things burrow from thick bushes, tilling soil with an aura so sweet, so calm, that grass springs through the seeds they bring. From the green comes the bloom of pink. These flowers not only carry the thanks of our ancestors, but the gift to spread such joy in the skies. The blossom things migrate during the warm seasons to the far corners of our country. Children often point towards the sky to try and spot the fluttering rosy petals that their parents would tell them stories of. In the first months of spring, the peonies would bloom for the children taking their first steps into a life of their own. They would be gifted friendships that would teach them patience, affinity, and solidarity. For those children who struggled to find a peer who saw the world as they would, the blossom things would be the tether that brought them together, gathering the listless to witness their flowers bloom red as they soared into the pastel skies. A memory to bond them, a treasure to keep them. In the warmth of summer, the lotus blooms for the betrothed on their day to be wed. For both bride and groom, the day carried a bouquet of turbulent emotions in of itself. In those moments, the ears of the blossom things would perk, bringing them to bless the isle with an aromatic breeze, a calm to quell the hearts of the lovers, a reminder from the skies that their love comes from their appreciation, one that they would promise evermore. In the stillness of autumn, the hibiscus prepares for the harsh cold. The parents yet to be prepare themselves for their own gift. While a mother would rest in a nursing room waiting to be lived in, the blossom things would shed their wings for claws as they burrow nests beneath those homes. On the days those infants arrived wrapped in those patient swaddles, the creatures beneath would calm their tears in the deepest of nights, a blessing for which the often restless parents would be thankful for, unknowing of the evergreen blooms that hid beneath their cots. In the chill of winter, the dandelions peek through the snow to dress the gardens of elders. They warm themselves by the hearth, hold each other's hands, and share a meal, flavorful and rich. The blossom things rest beneath those hearths for warmth, huddled, taking in the love that they shared. As the sun returned the snow to the sky, they would decorate those gardens with a flourish of pink, ready to reveal themselves beneath the blankets of white. The blossom things are bountiful and many, but before people came to our world, where did they learn this grace for thanks? Before the first villages would pitch their tents, the blossom things are said to have ventured from the peak of our great mountain, bringing with them blessings from beyond the clouds. When they came, the air was dry, thick, and the trees could not make enough of it for all the animals that the Creator had given life. They would cough endlessly, and water could not wet their throats. The blossom things' ears would perk, scurrying towards herds of the sick beasts. A mother coddled her pup, praying for its lungs to breathe steady. A father held his kit, treating the wounds that air couldn't. The longer they stayed in this ill company, the pink that blushed the blossom thing's ears faded to a dismal hue. Among them, a leader chirped up. They could not stand for this sickness that overwhelmed the wilds. They took in a great big breath. They puffed their chests so white and pure. They shook their little body with such a flutter that the soft spines on their back would drop, falling between the cracks of the ground beneath them. Pink would soon return to their ears, and fresh grass returned to the ground below. The rest of the blossom things mimicked this leader. They would flutter their spines all across the fields and forests that needed them, and within just a few minutes, flourish. The critters that hid in the thick trunk stopped coughing. The birds that stayed far in the sky would land and peck at the fresh soil. The fish would swim upstream just to get a glimpse of the saviors of those fields. This was a tumultuous gratitude. These emotions were supposedly the cause of the first gracious bloom, a flower so bright and full of hope. The leader of the blossom things would sniff at it. Their snout would yellow from the pollen. Their ears grew thrice their size. Their legs stood tall and strong. Their petals would wrap around their neck and ferry them skyward. An angel would bloom from this grace. The large blossom thing implored their kin to share in this gift. So one by one, they would sniff the gracious bloom and take on the same image. They bucked their legs, they ruffled their fur, they took to the skies and carried the thanks of the forest to the rest of the world. So tell your children, share with your friends, if they feel a flutter behind their ear, or if the grass looks that much greener, the blossom things are probably near, and you're grateful for their thanks too. Hi, did you like the story? Thank you so much for watching. When I started making these videos, I didn't exactly expect much of it other than a creative outlet, so I'm more than grateful for you listening, watching, having a tab open, all of it. As always, I'm just a guy with an internet connection, so if you're interested in learning more about what I've talked about today, I've left some resources in the description to get you started. Feel free to throw in the comments any other Pokemon stories you'd like me to dive into, make sure to subscribe to see if I get around to it, and maybe, just maybe, we can see each other again.